already proving with archaeological evidence that everything that was written about this temple was wrong. She was a mother, she was a wife, she was a queen, she was a goddess. And we are trying to find out what it did us.
Scientists have spent decades arguing about who Cleopatra really was. Now, groundbreaking DNA analysis has delivered answers that nobody was prepared for. Beneath the legend of the most famous queen in history lies a biological horror story hidden for 2,000 years. Her family did not just hold power, they destroyed themselves from the inside to keep it. And what that destruction left inside Cleopatra's body is darker than anything history ever recorded about her. The results are not simply surprising, they are deeply unsettling. Martinez and the tunnel. For 20 years, one woman has been building a case that the entire academic world dismissed. Her name is Kathleen Martinez. She is not a trained archaeologist. She is a criminal lawyer from the Dominican Republic who walked away from her career to find the tomb of Cleopatra. Most scholars told her she was wasting her time. They believed the tomb had been swallowed by the Mediterranean Sea or buried forever beneath the modern streets of Alexandria. Martinez did not accept that conclusion. She picked it apart the way she had picked apart weak arguments in court for years. And when she looked closely enough, the holes appeared. Her investigation led her to Taposiris Magna, an ancient temple site roughly 48 kilometers west of Alexandria. Most historians had written it off as a minor religious outpost. Martinez did not see a minor outpost. She saw a location that had been deliberately chosen and, over centuries, deliberately forgotten. In 2022, her team broke through layers of limestone and found something nobody expected. Carved directly into solid bedrock was a tunnel stretching more than 1,300 meters, nearly a full mile, running 12 meters beneath the surface in a perfectly straight line toward the Mediterranean Sea. It had been cut through solid rock using ancient tools, with no modern equipment, and yet the geometric precision was flawless from one end to the other. Not a single deviation, not a single error across an entire mile of underground stone. Modern engineers compared it to the Tunnel of Eupalinos in ancient Greece, one of the most celebrated feats of engineering in the ancient world. The question it raised was not how it was built, it was why. Why carve a passage of this scale beneath a supposedly minor temple? The answer came in pieces. A submerged harbor was discovered offshore, confirming Taposiris Magna was once a functioning royal center. Inside the complex, Martinez's team found headless statues of Ptolemaic rulers, their heads deliberately removed during the Roman conquest. Someone targeted this site specifically. That is not something you do to a place that does not matter. Then came the mummies. 16 rock-cut tombs, each containing a body with a gold amulet placed inside the mouth where the tongue had been. In ancient Egyptian belief, the soul had to speak in its own defense before Osiris, the god of the dead, to earn its place in the afterlife. A golden tongue gave the dead that power. These were not ordinary people. They were prepared, equipped, and waiting. The tunnel had been partially flooded by ancient seawater that sealed inside over centuries. Whatever lies at the end has been sitting in complete darkness, untouched, for 2,000 years. Martinez believes Cleopatra is at the end of that tunnel. But after what science has now uncovered about this queen's biology, finding her body is no longer simply about solving a mystery. It is about confronting one. Because to understand what her tomb might hold, we first need to understand the family that made her. And that story is not a dynasty. It is a slow biological collapse that had been building for over 2 centuries before Cleopatra drew her first breath. The family that ate itself. The Ptolemaic dynasty did not stumble into genetic catastrophe. They chose it deliberately, generation after generation, because power mattered more to them than survival. The Ptolemies were originally Greek, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals. They had conquered Egypt and made themselves its rulers, but they were foreigners on a foreign throne. To make sure that throne could never be taken from them, they made a calculated decision. They would only marry within their own family. Brothers married sisters, uncles married nieces. Generation after generation, the same bloodline marrying itself over and over again. By doing this, the crown, the land, and the wealth stayed locked inside the family forever. No outsider could inherit it. No outsider could challenge it. It was a ruthless political strategy, and for a time, it worked. But biology does not negotiate with politics. Every generation of inbreeding was quietly loading a weapon inside their bloodline. Every person inherits two sets of genes, one from their mother and one from their father. When those two people come from different families, healthy genes cancel out damaged ones. This is the body's built-in protection system. Variety keeps it working, but when parents share the same bloodline, they carry the same damaged genes with nothing on the other side to correct them. The damage passes down, doubles, and compounds with every generation. Scientists call this homozygosity. To understand what this produces in a real human body, consider Charles II of Spain. His family followed the same pattern, but for fewer generations. His inbreeding coefficient, the scientific measure of how much his parents' DNA overlapped, was about 25%. By the time he died at 38, he could not speak until he was 4, could not walk until he was 8, and his jaw was so deformed, his teeth never met. He could not chew food. He swallowed everything whole. His autopsy found his skull filled with fluid and his heart the size of a peppercorn. Cleopatra's estimated inbreeding coefficient was approximately 45%, nearly double. The damage was already showing before she was born. Her great-grandfather Ptolemy VIII was recorded by Roman visitors as morbidly obese, with limbs too weak to support his own body. His neck was swollen, his eyes bulged, his breathing was labored. These are not simply the signs of excess. They are the recognizable symptoms of inherited metabolic disease. He also murdered his own son and sent the boy's dismembered body parts to the mother as a birthday gift. Ancient sources recorded it with horror. Modern researchers read it as evidence of severe psychiatric deterioration caused by compounding genetic damage. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was described as soft, weak, and without authority. Medical historians see the same pattern, the same inherited disorders, the same slow collapse. Cleopatra was born at the end of this. She was not simply a member of a powerful family. She was the final product of a biological system that had been destroying itself for over 200 years. And the evidence of that destruction was not buried in secret records. It was visible to anyone who knew where to look. The genetic time bomb. It was sitting on the coins. Silver coins minted during Cleopatra's reign show her with a heavy hooked nose, a pronounced jaw, and a thick neck. Historians have long called this the Ptolemaic family look, as though it were simply a shared aesthetic. Medical researchers see something very different. They see the consistent physical signature of a bloodline under severe genetic stress, pressed into metal and passed down unchanged through generations of inbreeding. Among the conditions appearing repeatedly across her family is Graves' disease. This is an autoimmune disorder where the body's immune system attacks its own thyroid gland, a small organ in the neck that controls energy and metabolism. When the thyroid is attacked this way, it goes into overdrive and produces far more hormones than the body can handle. The physical symptoms include bulging eyes, swelling in the neck, and sudden weight changes. All of these appear in documented descriptions of multiple Ptolemaic rulers. But the internal symptoms matter just as much. An overactive thyroid floods the body with constant stimulation. It produces relentless energy, rapid speech, chronic insomnia, and a tendency toward impulsive, high-risk decisions. Ancient writers praise Cleopatra for exactly these qualities. She worked through the night. She moved without rest. She made bold political decisions that shocked everyone around her. History called this genius. But modern researchers ask a quieter and far more disturbing question. What if that legendary energy was not a gift? What if it was a symptom, the biological output of an inherited disorder passed down through a family that had been compounding the same damaged genes for over 2 centuries? Her most terrifying enemy was never Rome. It was already inside her. Scientists believe that testing the DNA of someone closely related to Cleopatra could finally confirm what the historical record only suggested. Her sister Arsinoe seemed to be the answer. But what the tests revealed turned the entire investigation inside out. The sister, the tomb, and the boy. Arsinoe IV was not a footnote in Cleopatra's story. She was her most dangerous rival, and she nearly won. When Cleopatra was driven into exile, Arsinoe seized the throne. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt and barricaded himself inside the royal palace, it was Arsinoe who organized the army surrounding him. She was a teenager commanding soldiers against the most powerful general in the world. She very nearly had him trapped. But history belongs to the winner. Arsinoe lost. She was captured, bound in chains, and displayed in Caesar's victory parade through Rome. What happened next was not what Caesar intended. The Roman crowd, watching a young girl dragged through the streets in iron shackles, began to weep. Openly, loudly, ancient historians recorded it because it was so politically damaging. A foreign enemy had made the Roman public feel sorry for Caesar's prisoner. That sympathy saved her life. She was exiled to the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus, in what is now Turkey. The Temple of Artemis was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the most sacred sanctuary site in the Mediterranean. Arsinoe believed holy ground made her untouchable. For years it did. In 41 BCE, Cleopatra persuaded Mark Antony to send assassins to Ephesus. They dragged Arsinoe from the temple and killed her on the steps. The murder of a princess on the grounds of one of the 7 wonders sent a shockwave across the ancient world. The priests of Artemis formally protested to Rome. Cleopatra had violated one of the most protected places in existence to silence her own sister. Arsinoe was buried in Ephesus, not in Egypt, not beside her ancestors. She was buried as a stranger in a foreign city and forgotten for nearly 2,000 years. In the 19th century, archaeologists found a distinctive octagonal tomb in Ephesus. The octagon in ancient architecture was directly associated with the Pharos lighthouse of Alexandria, the most recognizable symbol of Ptolemaic Egypt. Archaeologist Hilke Thur connected the details. A Ptolemaic princess murdered in this city, buried in a tomb shaped to echo her homeland. The timeline matched, the location matched. Thor went further. Based on photographs of the skull taken in 1929, she proposed the bone structure suggested the individual had a mother of African descent. If Arsinoe had an African mother and shared the same father as Cleopatra, then Cleopatra herself may have been of mixed heritage. The claim ignited a decades-long debate that culminated in a 2023 Netflix documentary casting a black actress as Cleopatra. But the foundation was fragile. The skull had passed through multiple institutions across a century, vanished in wartime Germany during the Second World War bombings, and was only relocated in 2022 in the University of Vienna archives. The chain of custody had serious gaps. Many researchers doubted whether 1929 measurements were reliable enough to draw any biological conclusions. In January 2025, a team led by anthropologist Gerhard Weber published results in the journal Scientific Reports that dismantled everything. Using micro-CT scanning, which creates a detailed digital map of internal bone structure, and DNA extracted from the petrous bone, the densest and most DNA-preserving part of the skull, they got a definitive answer. The skeleton was not Arsinoe. It was a boy, between 11 and 14 years old. The DNA showed a Y chromosome. The scans revealed severe physical abnormalities, a distorted skull, a receding jaw, bone structure consistent with Treacher-Collins syndrome, a condition affecting facial bone development, or severe rickets. In the ancient world, children born with visible deformities were often considered cursed and hidden from public life. Yet, this child was placed in one of the most prestigious tombs in the ancient world. His DNA showed no Egyptian origin. The genetic signals pointed to the Italian peninsula, or Sardinia, a severely deformed Italian boy in a royal tomb in Ephesus, whose presence no researcher has been able to explain. The theory built on this skeleton collapsed overnight, but the mystery left behind was darker than the question it replaced. The boy in the tomb told science who Cleopatra was not. What her body was actually carrying was still waiting to be answered. Miracle or wreckage? With a 45% inbreeding coefficient, Cleopatra should have been visibly and severely impaired. Her great-grandfather could barely walk. Her father was documented as weak and ineffective. The deformed boy in the octagonal tomb, likely connected to the same genetic network, died young and disfigured in a foreign city. Her siblings collapsed or were eliminated. And yet, Cleopatra governed Egypt for 21 years, spoke 9 languages, commanded a naval fleet in battle, and held the loyalty of the 2 most powerful men in Rome. That contradiction demands an explanation. The first is what researchers call the medical victim hypothesis. This argues that Cleopatra did not escape her genetics. She survived, but at a cost history consistently misread as grace. The ancient historian Plutarch left behind 2 details that look very different once you understand her biology. The first is the carpet scene. Popular culture shows Cleopatra emerging from a luxurious rolled carpet to meet Caesar. Plutarch wrote something different. She concealed herself inside a linen bed sack, a simple cloth bag tied at the top, and was carried on the back of a single servant. For a grown woman to be carried that way without injuring the carrier, she had to be extremely small and light. The second detail is more direct. Plutarch wrote explicitly that her physical beauty was not remarkable on its own. What captivated people was her voice, her intelligence, and her presence, not her face, not her body. Set those details beside a 45% inbreeding coefficient, and they stop looking like personality traits. They start looking like symptoms. The second explanation is the genetic miracle hypothesis. Even at extreme levels of inbreeding, genetics contains an element of chance. It is possible, though rare, for an individual to inherit a relatively undamaged combination of genes. Cleopatra lived to 39, bore 4 children, and sustained the kind of performance that suggests her core systems were functioning where her siblings had not. Her brother Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile at approximately 14 years old, while fleeing in full battle armor, apparently too weak to stay afloat. Her other brother died young under suspicious circumstances. Cleopatra outlasted all of them, but the most revealing pattern is in her choices. She produced no children with either of her brothers, despite being required to share the throne with both. She turned instead to Caesar, a man from an entirely different bloodline, and became pregnant almost immediately. Then to Mark Antony, another outsider, with whom she had 3 more children. Her 4 children were biologically healthier than any Ptolemaic heir produced in generations. The 3 children with Antony survived into adulthood in Rome. Cleopatra did not know what a gene was, but she watched her family collapse around her from childhood. She saw the deformities, the weakness, the early deaths. She understood the pattern without having a name for it, and every reproductive decision she ever made broke it. Surviving her genetics was only half the battle. The other half was making sure no one who looked at her could see what that survival was costing her. The pharmacist queen. Before Cleopatra walked into any room that mattered, the work had already been done. The incense had been burning for hours. The wine had been prepared with specific additions. The kohl around her eyes had been applied according to a formula she had studied herself. Every detail of what people would see, smell, and feel in that room had been engineered in advance. This was not a queen getting dressed. This was a scientist running an experiment, and her own body was the subject. The clearest proof of her scientific knowledge is the pearl story. To win a wager with Mark Antony over who could host the most expensive banquet, Cleopatra dropped a priceless pearl earring into a cup of vinegar and waited for it to dissolve. Pearls are made of calcium carbonate. Vinegar contains acetic acid. When the 2 meet, the pearl breaks down completely. She drank it. History remembered this as extravagance. It was a precise chemical demonstration. A woman with that understanding was not simply using remedies. She was designing them. Egypt in her time was the global center of medical knowledge, and she had access to all of it. If she was managing chronic joint pain caused by the same genetic collapse that had crippled her ancestors, opium was available, harvested from poppy fields in Thebes, and well documented in Egyptian medical practice. A carefully managed dose would allow her to stand through hours of diplomatic ceremony without showing pain. If she was managing the insomnia and internal agitation that come with an overactive thyroid, she may have used kai-fi, a complex incense burned in Egyptian temples at night. Plutarch wrote that its scent eased tension and brought sleep. For a woman whose thyroid may have been flooding her system with stimulating hormones every night, Kyphe was not atmosphere. It was medicine. The blue lotus flower, regularly infused into wine across the ancient world, produces a mild calming effect. Ancient writers described Cleopatra's presence as almost immediately disarming. A room prepared with the right wine before a critical meeting is not a small detail. It is a calculated advantage. Then there is her face. Cleopatra is believed to have written a text on cosmetics called Cosmeticorum, fragments of which were later cited by the physician Galen. It included recipes for skin conditions using compounds with real pharmacological effects. She did not simply wear cosmetics, she formulated them. If Graves' disease was pushing her eyes slightly forward, Cole could redirect attention to their intensity. If thyroid disease was swelling her neck, the wide decorative collars she wore in formal settings covered it completely while appearing purely ceremonial. Every element of what the world saw when it looked at Cleopatra was constructed. The scent, the wine, the coal, the collar. She was managing a body that was quietly working against her, and she did it so completely that for 2,000 years, nobody suspected a thing. Beneath a tunnel in Egypt, sealed in darkness and ancient seawater, the physical truth of everything she worked so hard to hide may still be waiting. But whether science will ever be able to reach it is a question with no clean answer. The last secret. Kathleen Martinez has spent 20 years building her case. The tunnel exists, the harbor exists, the gold-tongued mummies exist, the headless royal statues exist. But after everything science has uncovered about Cleopatra's genetics and the body she spent her entire life concealing, the meaning of reaching the end of that tunnel has completely changed. This is no longer a search for a legend. It is a potential autopsy of the most genetically damaged royal who ever held power. If Martinez breaks through the final wall and reaches a burial chamber, she will not simply find a queen. She may find a medical record written in bone, the size of the frame, the density of the bones, the condition of the joints. All of it could confirm or collapse everything science has built around her name for decades. But the DNA may be gone. Ancient genetic material degrades rapidly in hot and humid conditions. Even inside a sealed tunnel flooded with seawater, 2,000 years is a long time. Scientists may finally reach Cleopatra and find that her genome has dissolved into nothing. The most anticipated genetic test in archaeological history may return silence. And there is a darker possibility still. Tomb robbery reached almost every royal burial in ancient Egypt. Tutankhamun's tomb survived only because debris from a later excavation accidentally buried its entrance. That was luck, not design. Cleopatra had no such accident protecting her. What Martinez may find, after 20 years of searching, could be a stripped chamber with nothing left but bone. But the darkest possibility is this. Cleopatra may have planned for all of it. She chose Taposiris Magna herself. She selected a temple dedicated to Osiris, the god of death and resurrection. She had her inner court buried beside her, with gold on their tongues, ready to speak on her behalf in the afterlife. She built a tunnel running a full mile through solid bedrock toward the sea, flooded with ancient water. She had the royal statues at the site deliberately defaced. None of this was accidental. Every detail was chosen by a woman who understood that her body was evidence and spent her final years making it unreachable. She knew Octavian would come looking. A body would have proven the Ptolemaic line was finished. A hidden tomb buried beneath a flooded mile of bedrock beneath what appeared to be a minor temple denied him everything. Even her death remains disputed. The snake is the version history chose. But ancient sources disagree. Some describe a concealed vial. Some describe as hidden pin. If she was the pharmacologist this script has documented, the most consistent conclusion is that she chose her method of death with the same precision she applied to her life. She designed her ending the way she designed her face, to show the world exactly what she wanted it to see, and nothing more. For 2,000 years, the performance has held. The legend is intact, the tomb is sealed, the DNA is unread. Kathleen Martinez stands at the mouth of a tunnel, and the machines that could read Cleopatra's genome are ready and waiting. But Cleopatra chose this location, engineered this silence, and built this darkness herself. She has been controlling her own story for 20 centuries, And until that final door opens, she still is.